Sacha would like to come on now.
Okay,
So I think
all right.
that would be
Well, let's do
excellent.
that.
Let's
Okay.
do it.
Works well.
It does. Hey, we go with the flow. We're all right. We're resilient. That's what life is all about.
So Sacha?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. That's
We're just gonna get our control. There you are.
how are you, Sacha? So Sacha,
Nice to see you after many years. Hi, David.
wonderful.
It has been a while.
It has. So Sacha really needs no introduction, but Sacha is very well known in spiritual circles. Sacha is a public speaker, publisher, writer, filmmaker, from a former rock musician, an artist. Sacha grew up in Rhodesia-Zimbabwe. You established Humanitad in 1999, and 5-year diplomatic campaign. You engaged Humanitad upon both the NGO and IGO playing fields. You've been an outspoken advocate of human rights and natural justice. You have instigated peace initiatives and educational programs. You've lobbied against human rights abuses in different parts of the globe. And you continue to prosecute for the protection of breakthrough innovators, scientists, and doctors. Sacha founded the New Earth Project and the New Earth Nation, the world's most integrated movement, promulgating sustainable, sovereign, and self-determining communities. It operates as a universal trust, engaging micronations by treaty, and exists outside of fictitious enclosures dreamt up by self-serving corporational governments and institutions. Sacha is also the founder of the International Tribunal of Natural Justice, which was launched under the multilateral observership in June 2015. Via ceremonial seating and ratification ceremony at Westminster Central Hall in London on the 800th anniversary of the signing of the Magna Carta. This new planetary court is committed to the dispensation of natural justice and adherence to the rule of law. So Sacha, talk about being a practical advocate of world peace. You've done it all.
Sure have. Yeah.
It's just amazing to have you on the show with us.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. I'm most familiar with you from the Tribunal of Natural Justice and the works that you've been doing. We've been following you for many years. I think we've interviewed you probably more than once, and we've collaborated on some activities and projects, done our small part as much as we can. And I love your work, Sacha, and I love what you're doing. And I'm always talking you up with friends saying, and a lot of our friends really love you as well.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Lana. Very kind words. What to say? All that I thought that I knew and understood about the human condition and the planetary ecology, politically, economically, socially, and so on, went out the window in the last 18 months, out the window entirely. So for all of the worldliness that I'm supposed to represent, I'm afraid I'm an abject failure, because after 21, 22 years of frontline activism in social reform, in dealing with leadership at the highest level and grassroots, I regard myself as an abject failure. I did not see coming what came. I did for many, many years warn against the biological threats of vaccination programs and the satanic and luciferic agendas that have run amok in the agrochemical industry base, the pharmaceutical industry base, and obviously that have run rampant through the high street in every town, village, and city on earth, courtesy of the parent corporation, aka the globalist bankster priest class of Luciferians working with the global apparatus. That said, I didn't see this coming. I didn't see a planetary lockdown coming in the way that it came. And what I mean by that is this. I didn't believe for one moment that human beings all around the world would be the ones to imprison themselves in their own homes. I didn't think I would ever see the median human frequency be rendered so low, so unbearably stupid, which is frankly what we're living in the thrall of right now. 190 Americans have rolled their imbecile sleeves up and offered themselves up for sacrifice to the beast of the land. That is very, very serious stuff. That's where we're at. I love the fact that you are promulgating a summit that is looking at something as profound, majestic, and simple as kindness. And I suspect you're right, that it's something like that aspect in the human gestalt that might just redeem us from this satanic nonsense, because we are in the thrall of a great evil, the greatest evil that's ever beset this.
You know, Sacha, I do believe, though, that we can change our frequency in a beat of in a second. And I do believe our energy can be raised. And I think that it's important never to give up hope. You know, things can manifest and unmanifest very quickly. So I guess, you know, one of the reasons we wanted to do this peace conference was that we thought that it was very important to have this in this very time, to give people hope. And
for the very reasons that you mentioned, so that we're not feeling like failures and powerless, and that we rise above all of this somehow.
So let me speak to this. I've just finished, as you may know, a 3-month tour coast to coast America, you know, embracing and exchanging spike proteins with tens of thousands of American citizens. And I've loved every moment of it. It's been arduous, it's been exhaustive, it's been the most challenging thing imaginable. But I did it because I wanted to see for myself, and I wanted to connect with the pulse of Middle America, because I believe that that represents the greater human pulse. And so I've got a fairly clear idea of, you know, of the elements of absolution and redemption and salvation as they relate to the human story today, having had thousands of conversations in the last 12 weeks and met with heavyweight political pundits, leaders, senators, district attorneys, leading lights in law and reform, as well as, again, tens of thousands of normal people. So I've got a pretty good litmus test on where we're at planetarily as a species. And of course, the work that I do with the International Tribunal, with Humanitad, and with the New Earth Project brings me on a daily basis in touch with thousands of people. So I'm very connected. And I would agree with you. Hope does spring eternal. I'm not quite certain why, given, again, the thrall of wickedness that we are in as a species right now. I'm beside myself with I have not lost hope within self, Lana, not for one instant. My resolve is ever more defined and refined. I'm going head to head with the behemoth in the work that I'm doing. And some of it I can speak to, and some of it I'm not allowed to speak to. And that's not going to change. But I'm concerned about kindness in the human zeitgeist. And I'll tell you why. Because there is meekness. The meek will inherit the earth. That's something which is part of possibly a scriptural predictive programming. Like, be meek, people, do what Caesar tells you, okay? And you'll inherit the earth, honest, trust us. That's been the game of the parent corporation, the Vatican complex, governments, for 2,000 years plus. In fact, it probably goes back beyond the cult of Isis to the Sumerians and prior. So I'm not sure that meekness and kindness is necessarily the thing. Now, I looked at the etymology, the root etymology of kindness today, because I thought, Christ, well, okay, let's speak about kindness. It's a beautiful subject, something I've been preaching as well for years. But I thought, do I really understand what it is? And I looked at the root etymology of it, and kind, of course, is connected to kin, and kin is connected to family and sectarianism and protectionism, and take care of ourselves and look after one another, and, you know, protect and defend that which is, you know, worthy of protection and defending. And that's all good and lovely. But I'm not so sure that kindness is the fifth element right now that will lead us anywhere other than into continuing to have a tea party in a prison cell. That's my concern. This is a summit. It's an exchange. So I'm interested to put the question out there to you and to have that dialogue with you?
Well, you know, Sacha, look, I agree with what you're saying. Reflecting upon what's happening in the world at the moment and reflecting upon what's being said in spiritual circles, I've come to the conclusion that potentially the environment that we find ourselves in, it's testing our spirit. And it's testing our spirit in a very interesting way. We are given the opportunity to really think deeply about who we are, what we are made of, and what we can do. It's testing our spirit, and it's testing our
strength of character.
Our strength of character. It's strengthening our sovereignty and our resolve. And that potentially could be a very useful thing in our spiritual development. There are those that will fold and there are those that won't fold. And we are all universes coming together. You know, we are in a matrix, but we are also outside the matrix. And so more than ever before, I've now focused on creating my own, stepping outside the matrix and creating my own internal reality. And that has, you know, I've been thinking more and more about the importance of meditation, of stepping outside of this matrix and of creating my own reality. And I think that has an incredible strength in its own right, a strength of allowing yourself to create your own reality and perhaps to create my own sovereign being, to create my own rules and laws. And that is something which is very real and very tangible.
Agreed. And how's that preventing the Gestapo kicking your front door in, taking your babies from you, which in various states in the United States, they're seriously putting forward in the assemblies to begin to take children away from parents who don't offer their children up for sacrifice and get them back.
I think we're also seeing people questioning all of this. We're seeing people looking at the laws, looking at sovereign, looking at the laws of the nations, of the Constitution.
Do you know why they're doing that, Lana? Do you know why those elements of society are looking at the laws? It's because of the raging against the machine of people on the front line who are actually going out and screaming blue murder and picking up pots and pans and pointy sticks and even guns where necessary. I mean, I've been with people brandishing their guns and saying the minute they step across the county lines, we will shoot them in the face, the feds, and they know it. And that's what is breaking the dreadlock and forgive me, the deadlock between the federal government and local government. For instance, I'm just saying that I don't believe it is the element of kindness and meekness and common decency that is prevailing in that fracas, that fight, that frontline fight. I know it's the people at the front line who are taking the body blows and who are standing there and saying, we're not allowing this infraction against civil liberties, against soul sovereignty, against the sacred groves of our children's bodies, and so on and so forth. So what is the dividing line between the kindness aspect, the moral decency and all of that, the meekness, and the rage that I personally represent more of in this world? It's a calculated rage, but it's a rage nonetheless.
We wanted to bring it back to ourselves. I mean, we're very aware of what's going on, and we're interacting with people all the time on everything that you're talking about. And it's just about not letting what I guess sometimes I call it dark forces or the enemies of humanity, allowing that to take over us and giving into that and just going out and everybody doing random things and throwing bricks and letting that anger and hatred leave. And as far as I know, and I know this well, that those dark forces they want you to do that. That's part of their game, is to get control of you by making you uncontrollable. And so the way we get control and the way we achieve our objectives is by becoming centered and coming back to ourselves. And that is a kind act, and that will help us achieve.
Beautifully stated, David. And it's what Lana said 10 minutes ago when she was saying that she works on the inner frequency and restoring that value, and that becomes the center ground. And I agree 100%. So that's our answer. Our answer is We have to balance that inner sanctum. We have to get that frequency right, and that's got to be situated in a place of, I think the wonderful lady who was speaking before me said, use the term grace, and I think that's entirely correct. Grace is the quanta that we need to hold within ourselves. That's the Christed aspect. But we must rage nonetheless and move into the temple and overthrow the tables of the moneylenders. And if needs be, pick up guns and pick up sticks and stones and pick up pots and pans where we need to protect and defend the weak, the vulnerable, the infirm, and the innocent against the travesty, the abomination of a satanic status quo.
Although Sacha, Gandhi did it without war.
Gandhi failed.
Well, Gandhi was
I know enough about Gandhi. I know I represented, I went to the Satyagraha. I spent time with Sonia Gandhi there and the Prime Minister at the time, and Muhammad Yunus and others. I've spent 20 years traveling to India. I love the Gandhi myth, Lana, but I don't believe that Satyagraha and Ahimsa in and of itself worked. In fact, I know it didn't. You know why I know that? Because India today is the biggest whore of Babylon that's ever existed, and it's trading in trillions of dollars of war munitions, guns, tanks, bombs, things that go bang. The desecration against the fabric of the soul of India has been absolutely replete, despite the life and the work and the times of Mahatma Gandhi. So Mahatma Gandhi was much of a controlled narrative. This is also part of what was subsumed into a kind of CIA a program, cultural program. We need to be very mindful of that stuff now if we're going to break the spell of what's happening today. I'm just so desperately concerned that we don't play into that satyagraha, that ahimsa, that kindness, that meekness, and forget the rage that we need to remember within ourselves at this time, because that, to my mind, is where the balance is.
You brought up a good point. You brought the Christ spirit into this and the Christ consciousness, and how Jesus went into the temples and he did rage against that evil element that was present in the temple of the creator of humanity, our soul consciousness. I'm not going to go into all that, but we know what we're talking about here. And I you are a world leader, a figure of transformational change that people look up to, and certainly, people are watching you to see your actions and how centered you are so that they can do the same. And we just thank you for that, for being strong. We see you here, you emit a very strong, powerful presence for the world, and just thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the kindness. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the work that you're both doing very much.
And this really started with you, with this Global Peace Teleconference. You immediately, first person that stepped up and said, yes, I'd love to support Lana or David in with Universal Solar presenting this teleconference, and just so grateful to have you on our show and to just speak your conviction and your truth and your powerful words here now, as you always have, and always being there to support us in our endeavors. And
thank you for your passion for humanity and humanity's direction. In our mind, kindness and peace is it can be a very powerful force.
You represent the lion spirit, speaking to you really emit it
and can I just say,
radiant way.
Can I just maybe we should just take a minute to put out there the wish and the goal that we do create a new earth, which is loving, which is kind, which allows us to be sovereign beings, and which will direct us to a future which is good.
Beautifully stated. Let's do that indeed. And the way we will do that is by tearing down the rotten edifice of the Babylonian enterprise that has assailed us for the last few thousand years. We're on the brink of that tremendous awakening, but it will take the collective Christed aspect of the human family to lean those flames in together to become the roaring inferno that burns to a cinder all of those, that rotten edifice. So thank you for that. I couldn't agree more. Let's balance our grace and our fury. Let's balance those elements together.
that's so well said. I just thank you so much for being on here, Sacha, and supporting us again. We are running a bit behind. We're supposed to have Ralph Othersby next.
Good to see you guys, and I'll jump back into the green room. Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye,
much.
Sacha.
We'll be following you. Your great works in the world.